The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your check. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Welcome back, DFS Army. This is FantasyFling. We are taking another look back at the DraftKings Milly Maker week 16. Sorry, it's a little later than normal, but we had some technical difficulties with Fantasy Labs, so we needed all the numbers to be working correctly so we can do this MME review for the top DFS Pro strategy, but then, just also the lineup that won it. So we wanted to take a look at all those numbers, and we are going to get into that. All right, so first we're going to take a look at what won the Milly Maker over on DraftKings this past week. Pretty heavy stack. And what was wild about this stack is we saw one like this in week four when the Detroit Lions and Seattle Seahawks, that game just exploded, broke the slate, really, 93 total points. So this lineup was very similar to that in the fact that there were 6 players stacked in that one game. But what was crazy was this lineup only had 51 total points in that game. So this is, 6 players in a game that's 51 total points. You wouldn't expect that to be, the top lineup. You wouldn't think there's enough scoring to go around, but really this lineup just hit all the right players. So this stack, just one stack, that's all you needed because it was huge. Primary stack of Daniel Jones, plus Barkley, plus Hodgins, plus Richie James. And it was brought back with 2 studs on both on the other side, TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson, who really, made the stack. So total points, 165, had about 27.5 point average. And then, contrarian overall. So despite having some chalk pieces, this was, a pretty contrarian stack, 87%. And then the whole lineup really was under 105%. So stack wise, this is really as good as it gets. Again, the game environment didn't go off, but it was very efficient. And, in a year of diversification across the different types of stacks that we've seen, QB plus 1, QB plus 2, QB plus 2 with 3 bring back options. We continue to see this is a positive EV decision over the long run to build around game environments, even if it loses you money. Most slates, if your goal is to win a large field GPP and you have the bankroll to stomach the losses and you have the patience, this is certainly a positive EV decision over the long run to do so. As we will get into that in the strategy of top DFS pros, but that's what we continue to see their strategy being those heavy game stacks. So ownership low, again, 102%. And really what was surprising is this was kind of setting up as a week when the chalk was smashed again with the pay down Minshew options, who ended up being chalk. He was 4,800. And then because of that pay down option at quarterback, you had, running backs that you can actually afford in great matchups like Derrick Henry, paying all the way up for him. Some of these other guys, Christian McCaffrey, not the best matchup, but he projected quite well. McKinnon, all these guys ended up being chalk, ended up failing. So what resulted was a more contrarian lineup because if Henry hits and Christian McCaffrey hits and McKinnon hits, you're looking at a lineup probably over 140%. So on the season now, we have 111% average. And then when we look at some of the top leverage plays of this lineup, this is always something you need to think about when building your lineups is how can I get leverage? Well, we had Chuba Hubbard he was the leverage play, 1%, 3x the salary, $4,900. Devonta Smith, there were a lot of receivers over 15% ownership. DJ Moore, Juju, DK Metcalf, for example. Devonta Smith, he really smoked the chalk wide receivers, outside of Jefferson, of course, and he was at under 10% ownership. And then Saquon Barkley, smash spot at cheaper salary than Christian McCaffrey and Henry. But really, the field was scared off of him due to his questionable ceiling, and I get it. The offense just hasn't been producing enough points. So, there was definitely some cause for concern there, but that's why he ended up being a great leverage play at 9% because he was the top scoring running back on the slate, and he was at a discount compared to Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry. And then Isaiah Hodgins, leverage play, under 10% ownership, 6th highest scoring wide receiver, and he was also just about minimally priced. So what I love about this lineup for me, what I think there's kind of a lot we can learn about this lineup is this was just really zigging while others zag. Everyone's going to play Henry and Christian McCaffrey. We're not going to do that. But we are going to target a certain game environment, and there's going to be chalky pieces, but we're going to deal with that by heavily stacking this game environment, getting guys who are very cheap and at lower ownership in some instances. And that's obviously going to be able to leverage the field in that regard. So 6 players and the cheap stacking options with like the main stack. So Daniel Jones, Isaiah Hodgins, and Richie James, the 3 only average 4,500 per player. And so that allows the salary savings to pay up for $7,900 Barkley, $9,300 Jefferson, and $4,900 Hawkinson. So when you have the heavy hitters, and then on both sides, really, you have defenses in this game that are susceptible to giving up points to opposing playmakers. And, really, this is the kind of game environment you want to target game stacks. And specifically, if you can find value in these game stacks, like he or she did with this lineup here. So very good. And then last thing to say, just about this lineup and overall in the season, you could see the total points right here. Low scoring continues to be low scoring. That's been kind of the theme since about week 9. First 2 months, we had an average Milly Maker winning score of 249 points. Since then, it's been on a rapid decline. We're seeing since week 9, 232 points, which by Milly Maker standards is very low. But what's crazy though, is oddly enough, half of the time it's been less than a QB +2, and half of the time it's been at least a QB +2 during that time when scoring is down. So normally when the scores are lower, the QB +1 winning lineups appear more, as we saw a lot last year and in 2021. And when the scores are higher, the QB +2 is more prevalent. But we've had back-to-back weeks with a QB +3 while the winning lineup scores remain low. I believe it was like 230 something last week. This week it's 229. So that said, this does bode well for you building your lineups with QB +2 and QB +3 stacks, even when the scores are lower, as they've been during the past 8 weeks, because these lineups are still finding their way to the top of the leaderboards. So this is certainly a trend that we'll keep an eye on as we round out the NFL season to start to look, for takeaways that we can go into 2023. But let's go ahead and kind of take a look here at the MME strategy of top DFS pros. So we're going to start with a couple big names that didn't have their best week, but did better than a lot of the other top pros. So we're going to start there. And Chipotle Addict, as you can see here, in NFL, he's a top 3 DFS pro in the world. Negative ROI day for him, negative $1,300. Duplicated quite a bit, had 129 unique lineups out of 150. And the top one was duplicated by another top DFS pro. So a couple things on here. He had a lot of different combos, QB +1 and also QB +2. He didn't force bringbacks. At least Yeah, he didn't force bringbacks, and he was also under on Mahomes. So we're gonna take a look at his exposures and some of the lineups that he built. So, and then this is another trend that I've been seeing with a lot of top DFS pros, and really we're kind of just the field is getting more so away from, don't sack a quarterback with a running back, specifically guys who are, pass catching backs. They're going to be stacked more frequently with the quarterback, but we've even been seeing this year, more running backs that are just stacked in winning lineups with a quarterback. It's been popping up more and more. Obviously, this lineup didn't get it done, but like we saw it last week, and we saw it in the winning Milly Maker build that had Daniel Jones and Barkley. Last week, we saw Patrick Mahomes and McKinnon. So it's very good combo, specifically if they do receive passes out of the backfield, but frequently we're seeing it more and more regardless. So Daniel Jones, Barkley, and Richie James. And, this is something like in the domination station, for example, for DFS Army, there are certain quarterbacks that you will set a rule QB +2 and you'll allow running back, wide receiver, tight end. And then there's obviously certain ones you won't. But, it's tough to say whether he just set a universal rule or if it was quarterback specific for this game. So, we'll look at some of the other builds that he has that aren't Daniel Jones, and we'll see if we can find any running backs in it. But Daniel Jones plus Barkley plus Richie James brought back with TJ Hawkinson. And then, Cousins, Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, Isaiah Hodgins, and Richie James. So rightfully so, a lot of the pros were on this game and stacking it several different ways. So we have a Minshew, an A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert. And obviously, DFS Army liked Minshew a lot too. Now, what was crazy is he did end up being the chalk. Earlier in the week, he was looking like a lower owned play. But, a lot of the big outlets, DFS Army included, the best, was all over Gardner Minshew. So these players, sometimes they get more steam throughout the week than we think they're going to be. We think they're going to be a contrarian play, and then before you know it, they end up being the chalk, and that's just kind of how it goes. But he was such a great price, it didn't really matter, and it wasn't really stupid ownership numbers. So, and with Minshew, it looked like whether he ran a batch, quarterback +1, and then, did on 75 lineups or whatever it was, or, and then did another one, maybe quarterback +2. It's hard to say. Sometimes the optimizer, he might've just done quarterback +1 and then, it gave him some Minshew lineups with +1, some with +2. Without really talking to Chipotle, we really wouldn't know, but regardless, he had combo of both of them in there. So combos, QB +2, some QB +1, but specifically in the great game environment of Minnesota and New York, it was always QB +2, and there was at least one bring back, which we're seeing. Now, as far as his exposures, he highest was Daniel Jones, Dak, and then he had Minshew, Geno, and Cousins. So he really spread out his exposures. 1, 2, 3, 4 players above 15%. Daniel Jones with the highest one, and then he was under on Mahomes. Maybe thought that was probably going to be the chalkiest play. And you kind of can see why, as we look into some of the pros who won and didn't win, we'll see why, and this is something I've noticed studying pros is really a lot of times it's make or break on the running back. So if you eat running back chalk and the running back smashes, you're going to have a positive ROI week. If you eat running back chalk and they don't smash, you're going to lose money for the most part, unless you have that one lineup that kind of saves your bacon, right? Which you will see specifically, in large field GPPs. Oh, I had a horrible day, but this one lineup didn't have that chalk running back. It had the right stack, and it made a positive ROI day. So CMC, Stevenson, Kenneth Walker over here, and really none of these guys got there. As far as tournament winning upside, Barkley had a good day. Being over the field on him a little bit helped. And then, he was a little under on Henry, so at least he wasn't way over on Henry. Otherwise, he probably would have had, -2,000 ROI day. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of Daniel Jones stacks. That's going to give you a lot of Richie James, a lot of Isaiah Hodgins. He had Dak stacks too, so CeeDee Lamb, Gallup. And I think the Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, I think optimizers was just putting them, just kind of throwing them in just based on their value, fantasy points per dollar. I know they were popping up in the Dom station as well. A little bit over on Juju, which is surprising being a complete fade, but I'm guessing Juju was probably in the Geno stacks as a bring back since he pretty much faded Mahomes. But yeah, he had DK Metcalf. So, and a little bit of Marquise Goodwin, a little under the field. But yeah, if you have Geno plus DK, Juju is a good bring back, obviously. And then under on DJ Moore, which that one didn't work out very well, even though Amon-Ra was a good fade. And then we continue to see a lot of the double tight end stacks, which no surprise here, right? Dalton Schultz, 71%, Goddard, 31%, TJ Hawkinson, 26%. So when you have, this high exposure to 3 players, you're obviously going to have some double tight end stacks. So take a quick peek at BGRESETH. As far as losing days go, one of the better days for DFS pros. Top lineup, Daniel Jones, +2, brought back with TJ Hawkinson. And pretty wild, too, because this is one of those type of builds that, I figure a lot of the field would be on when you have these cheaper quarterbacks like Minshew. I personally had Minshew, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry stacks as well. But yeah, Daniel Jones, he was cheap as well. So, this type of stack works, especially when he got really cheap Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James. So over on the chalky side, but 193 points total. So he had a lot of QB +2 with no bringbacks were forced. And then, yeah, some QB +3 too, just like we saw in the winning Milly Maker. Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James. But unfortunately had Henry instead of Barkley. And because of that, wasn't able to fit in a Justin Jefferson as like a bring back and a TJ Hawkinson like the winning Millie build did. That's just kind of how it goes. You could have 3 to 4, if you're looking at 9 spots, right? You got 1, 2, 3, 4. You have the right start for this, but the other 5 spots, because you made, Derrick Henry decision, you had to fit him in the lineup as opposed to like Chuba Hubbard. That's totally what changed this lineup. Jones, Barkley, Richie James with the TJ Hawkinson bring back. So, as I said, a lot of QB +2 was we're seeing. QB +4 on that one. No bring back. That's pretty crazy to me to see QB +4 with no bring back, especially when it's on the New York side and with the playmakers on the other side. But that's how it goes. So over on Daniel Jones and Darnold plus Prescott. And then, over on Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and Stevenson. So this is really what ended up being a losing day. Just being over on those players, those chalky players that didn't provide tournament winning upside. Daniel Jones, 46%. So a ton of Daniel Jones. Obviously, a good amount of Darnold and Prescott. And a little bit of Goff. And really, I liked the the Panthers and Detroit Lions game, just because both of those, their secondary can be exposed. Both of their secondaries are just not very good. So it did have sneaky shootout potential, especially on, I like the Sam Darnold side because he was only 3% owned, get some exposure there. And DJ Moore stacks plus a lot of bring back options on the Detroit side. So overall, like the strategy there. Under on Geno, under on Mahomes, and under on Minshew. And again, it was just the running back decisions. 80% Christian McCaffrey. That's really high. And, in hindsight, I was looking at it. I don't understand why the field was so high on Christian McCaffrey. And this is one thing that early in the week, I kind of I saw that he was popping in projections in an ownership. And, I was like trying to talk myself into fading him, but I just couldn't do it just because so much value opened up late that I felt like he was a good play. But really, the Washington has a good D. He's pricey and he was chalk. That in hindsight, that was an easy fade. And the people who faded Christian McCaffrey did well this past weekend. So Derrick Henry, same thing. He wasn't a smash matchup though. So, but often as we see, if a guy ends up being too chalky, it's a positive EV decision just to fade him, even though the matchup is good. And in this situation, Derrick Henry, especially at running back, fading up, but Derrick Henry, he didn't get there to provide tournament winning upside. 22 points, good, not nearly enough for $8,600 salary. Ramondre Stevenson, he didn't get there either. So Saquon, if he had just taken some of that Henry and Christian McCaffrey exposure and brought it over to Saquon, get him above 40%, this is probably a much better day. And really only lost 1,000 in the Milly Maker, so not too bad. Dalvin Cook over there, and then faded McKinnon, and that was a good fade because he definitely didn't get there. Not this time. So obviously that much Daniel Jones, Hodgins, Richie James, Darius Slayton. I'm not going to get too much into that. But going to be under on Justin Jefferson. And this is, kind of goes back to understanding lineup construction. You can't be 80% Christian McCaffrey, 65% Derrick Henry, and fit in Justin Jefferson as well. So, got to take some stands. Obviously took the wrong ones. And that's just kind of how it goes. But now we're going to look at some moves that were made by some other top DFS pros that ended up paying off. So now the whistles, I've covered him before on this podcast. And one thing I noticed the last time, one of the last times, is he is not afraid to just lock in a quarterback. Look at this. 100% Dak Prescott. So positive ROI on the day. I mean, gosh, that's ballsy to lock in that quarterback who hasn't got there nearly enough this year for ceiling. But he did this game, and it just goes to show this is why, Whistles is one of the top DFS pros, because he'll have conviction on a player, be willing to take that risk, and, positive ROI day. So it was a great game environment. Obviously, it worked out this time for him. So talk lineup, Dak +2, and then no bringback. So, we do see a lot of quarterback +2 with no forced bringback. Sometimes they're there, as we'll see that there will be a bringback in some lineups, but it's not really forced. And then he also had a lot of double tight ends as well. So let's take a look here. Very contrarian to 69%, 209 points. Dak plus Lamb plus Schultz. No bring back. And this is a double tight end. TJ Hawkinson and Schultz. 200. Dak +2. No bring back. Now the secondary stack here, Dalvin Cook, Rich James. Dak +2. This time I had to bring back with Dallas Goedert. Also Dallas D. And then the double tight end again. So a lot of double tight end. Hawkinson, Schultz. Hawkinson. And also, another point, this just kind of goes to show that even if you nail the correct quarterback, it is really hard to enter 150 lineups and still find the perfect combination to win a large field GPP. So here you have 150 lineups. The quarterback scored 32 points. He obviously had stacking pieces that smashed when he scored that many, as you had CeeDee Lamb, 37 points. In a game environment that really went off, but it just goes to show 150 lineups is not nearly enough to nail every possible combination. So for the people who say, oh, you only win because you MME 150 lineups, that's just not true. He's absolutely nailed his stack, 150 lineups, and still only made $350. So obviously, by looking at his exposures, we're going to see 100% Dak. So that's going to result in probably a lot of Zeke, a lot of Pollard, because he set it up for quarterback +2 and he didn't exclude running back. And we're going to see a lot of CeeDee Lamb and whatnot. So Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, and then more so Pollard, is going to correlate well with the Cowboys. But Zeke also does too if the Cowboys are really rolling and scoring a ton and running the ball. And specifically, Zeke gets those goal line carries too. So Stevenson, Christian McCaffrey, and pretty wild, right? Be over the field on Christian McCaffrey and still have a profitable day. Certainly, if he had more Saquon Barkley, for example, if we're talking 32% Saquon, this is probably a much better day overall. And it's just one player often that makes such a big difference in every lineup that you have. Having repeated exposure to that one player can bring some of these lineups that were over 200 much closer to winning the competition. So Derrick Henry under on McKinnon. And then this will be quick. Let's see who he faded mainly. DK. So it wasn't a complete fade, just a little under the field on like DK and Jefferson and DJ Moore, not way under the field there, but no surprise with as much Christian McCaffrey. CeeDee Lamb, not cheap. Noah Brown, Michael Gallup. So Dak +2, going to get a little bit of everybody. Dalton Schultz, Hawkinson. A little under on Kelsey. And we haven't really looked at defense today, but yeah, Kansas City, that was a good one. 14%. Fill in more of the pay downs. And, there really wasn't a defense that on the Saturday main slate that really, really stood out. So makes sense to kind of keep your exposures all over the place. Now, Grey Poupon is a really sharp DFS pro. Regularly see Grey Poupon's lineups near the top of the leaderboards and really any contest and every contest. The Milly Maker being no different. So a couple of notes here on Grey Poupon. He had a lot of Cousins. So I believe, kind of look at these exposures first. 34% Cousins, a good amount of Darnold, kind of as we saw before. Some Josh Allen, more Patrick Mahomes than the rest of the field, it seems so far. And then a little bit of Minshew, but under the field there and under the field on Geno. So he did have, and we'll get into this, Cousins +2, no forced bringbacks. But other than that, there were a lot of quarterback +1 lineups. So this might have been something where he set a rule, quarterback +1, exclude Minnesota. That's like a rule at DFS Army at the domination station that we have, for example. Or, if you run it in batches, you can get the same result too. Just kind of, let the optimizer ride, let it do what it wants. So Cousins +2, Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Richie James bring back here, 208 points. So not far off, about 20 points away from winning the Millie. And then, this was a Gardner just +1 lineup. So no bringbacks. Cousins +2, no bring back this time. So sometimes there's a bring back, sometimes there's not. Cousins +2, Richie James bring back. Cousins +2, no bring back. In this one, you have Minshew +1, 2 bring backs. So you could see they're not forced. Like we had a Minshew +1 with no bringbacks, and we had Minshew +1 with 2 bringbacks. A little bit of Darnold +2, no bringbacks. Cousins +2, no bringbacks. Gardner +1, DJ Chark bring back. So really, and this one's a Darnold +1 and no bring back. So really the only bring back, quarterback +2 was Cousins. That seems to be the only rule that was set. And that might just be something where, Grey Poupon liked that game environment specifically. So we're going to heavy stack that game environment. Everything else, we're going to do a quarterback +1 and just let the optimizer ride. Now, we get into user exposures. We looked at the quarterback. Now, this is the biggest reason why, obviously, target at some of the right game environments with the stacks. But overall, the biggest reason why Grey Poupon have a positive ROI day is went ahead and faded Henry and Christian McCaffrey relative to the field. So under the field there, under the field on McKinnon, under the field, obviously, on Dalvin Cook. But yeah, Kamara had a pretty good day, had 61% Kamara. Singletary had a good day, 32% Singletary. So wherever the field there, positive leverage you needed. Miles Sanders, 24%. Ramondre, 21%. Some Montgomery, a little bit of Swift. And then Justin Jefferson. And really, that's all that you needed to see, right? The right stacks and a lot of exposure to Justin Jefferson, 55%. And, Kamara, some Barkley, just being under on Henry and Christian McCaffrey. And that's really all she wrote. Under on DK. So quite disappointing if you rostered DK, if you had Geno stacks, myself included. Not so good. But that's going to do it for Grey Poupon. And one thing I wanted to take a look at here before we get out of here is this is a lineup. Obviously, I don't really know who this player is. I looked on RotoGrinders top 100 pros list, didn't see this name. Regardless, this is an MME player. $98,000 ROI for the day. So we're going to take a look real quick at dogged use lineups and see what it was that won it for him or her. Now, kind of just goes to show one lineup. That's all you need to have an amazing day. So, this one lineup won $100,000, which really, other than that, losing day if it wasn't for this one lineup. So $98,710, positive ROI on the day. But that taking second place, winning that 100K, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and then just the Dallas D with a Devonta Smith bring back. So not a Dak +2, but a Dak +1, Dallas D, Devonta Smith bring back. Saquon Barkley, Tyler Algier. It looks like, yeah, Algier and Drake London were in a team stack as well. So there was a secondary stack in there. DJ Chark, Hawkinson. Oh, and Barkley. So there's 2 secondary stacks, Barkley and TJ Hawkinson as well. So great lineup, 225 points, just 3 points off of first place, 73%. So very contrarian. Awesome lineup. Again, Dak +2. No bring back on this one. Another stack, Barkley, Isaiah Hodgins, TJ Hawkinson. Dak +1. No bring back. Looks like a lot of Barkley, Richie James. So let's look at some of these exposures. Crazy to see 13% Malik Willis. Targeted a lot of the cheap quarterbacks. Huntley, Willis, Purdy, Gino, and Gardner Minshew. So Dak and Justin Fields were the top pay up options, but other than that, went cheap at quarterback. And obviously, if you do that, you open up your lineup for a lot of studs to go off. If you find that one quarterback that really does go off, which there were several this past week, Daniel Jones, Gardner Minshew, Tony Pollard, Stevenson, Sanders, Pacheco, Barkley. But yeah, faded Henry. And that really made a big difference for this lineup to hit that one combination. And had looks like entirely faded Christian McCaffrey. So just X'd out Christian McCaffrey, low on Derrick Henry. That'll do it. Lamb, Ayuk, Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. So, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, obviously, and Dak bringbacks, and then Minshew stacks. So, because there was some Minshew there. Some Juju. Surprisingly enough, almost an entire fade of Justin Jefferson, but smashed the one lineup that you needed. So that's all that matters. And, had a fair amount of Hawkinson too. So that certainly helped the day. So yeah, great job for Dogged You. 225 points. Awesome lineup. TJ Hawkinson, Barkley. That's really what you needed, those 2 pieces. And with that Dak and CeeDee Lamb stack with Devonta Smith at the bring back. Awesome lineup, really good stuff. I think that's going to do it for this week. If you like this kind of content, be sure to, hit that notification button, hit the like button, comment if there's something you see that I'm missing. Go ahead and comment. I love to read those. I always love studying these pros and their strategy. So what we can learn going forward so that we can bank one of these GPPs, specifically the Milly Maker. So, and if you like this kind of content, please hit that notification button so you never miss an episode when we go live. Best of luck in week 17. We'll see y'all next week.